Good evening, guys. Welcome back to my channel. This is Coach DC from All 22 Films. We're going to take a look at Elijah Arroyo. He played 19 snaps in the Seahawks' 1916 loss to the Titans. That loss should come with a caveat, of course, because Seattle scored 16 points in the opening quarter. Arroyo, of course, had the touchdown catch here in a moment to put the Seahawks up 7-0 on their first drive. In addition, he played a role, a somewhat ironic one, in the long touchdown run by Jakardier Wright. So we'll show this play from the end zone angle first, how it breaks, or if you ask me, kind of freezes Tennessee's defense. From a personnel standpoint, it's a 21 personnel group. So the fullback, Brady Russell, motioning out into the flats. Arroyo is the lone tight end. This is a backside safety who, from the all-22 angle in a moment, you guys will see as I break it down here, that he's kind of locked to the field. Okay, when I say to the field, what I'm referring to is the ball is on the left hash for the offense, illustrated by that blue line. If you're new to my content, I try to use this blue line every single snap so you can see where the boundary is. That's the short side of the field, and where the field or the wide side is located. In this case, because it's a 21 personnel group, Tennessee has responded with their 4-3 structure. Yes, you only see two linebackers in that window there. There's a third linebacker off screen. He's apex out to twins. The two receivers that Seattle had are set up to the field. Of course, it's a blown coverage by Tennessee. Don't get me wrong. But Seattle's offensive staff put them in this situation. The corner could cover in the flats. The safety could certainly take Arroyo. They do not seem to be coordinated here. I think this is all very well set up from a Seattle standpoint. Drew Lock here with a strike for a touchdown. It caps, I think, a 7-play drive. Seattle only faced 1 third down here. From here on out, I'm going to go in a progression of Arroyo's snaps. I'm not going to show each one. Like I said, he did play 19. One thing that showed up last year somewhat with Kubiak calling plays and could be, could carry on this year is certain tight ends on the field on run plays and certain tight ends off when it's passed. And so this is still on that first possession. I'm going to backtrack here and, like I said, go chronological or through a progression. It's another 21 personnel group, and Tennessee is in their 4-3 structure. And I'm bringing this play up for a couple of reasons. Number one, Arroyo's not on the field. It's a kind of a cool run concept. I would say it's a designed wind back, perhaps, with the running back. The O-line is running zone to the right, and you get this kind of kick motion from Saubert on the edge defender. Unfortunately for Seattle, this edge defender kind of digs underneath. He jumps to the inside, so they're gap exchanging with this edge defender going underneath, and then this linebacker folding over the top. I really like the scheme, to be honest with you. This is very Ben Johnson-esque, in my opinion, whereby with this, the purple line illustrates what I would call the kick-out block. I don't have anything drawn for Russell because I suspect, let me change colors here for a moment, I suspect that Russell is supposed to go between the kick-out block and the left tackle and essentially be the backside block on a wind back concept. Really, I think Wright wants to take this ball back in this direction here. So the edge defender stunting to the inside really, mucked everything up, in my opinion. Wright still gets, I believe, 4 yards. You probably have already seen this play on social media. It's the one where Christian Haynes ends up on top of Jeffrey Simmons. Look, I root for Christian Haynes. Things haven't been great so far for him in his NFL career. He's a PG County guy, so not far from me, about an hour. Nonetheless, the reality is we have to mention that Jeffrey Simmons' right leg is being buckled or impacted by someone else running into him. So this wasn't just a one-on-one situation where Christian Haynes pancaked Jeffrey Simmons. So the reason why I brought that play up is I would like to see a little bit more flexibility for Arroyo used in that role, the one that I just showed you from a Saul Bear standpoint. Motioning across, going to kick out the edge defender. Basically, I offer to you, Arroyo could have done what Saul Bear did there, which is not be able to kick the guy out because he took a somewhat poor angle, in my opinion. But in any case, we're still on the first possession. It's the very next play. Arroyo is going to get a chance to run a route here, 12 personnel group, and I think it's a sail concept. So Arroyo's route is the one in kind of dark blue there, a clear out up at the top side of the screen by this wide receiver. Functionally, it's a clear out. I'm not saying the ball can't be thrown to him. But one thing that showed up in this game often, especially early when Locke was in, was the running back just kind of flaring immediately. And I think that clears up the read for the quarterback. It did not seem to happen as often for Jalen Milroe. I'm not going to get into the whole Milroe issue right now, but because the running back flares out, you're oftentimes getting an inside linebacker subtracted from the middle of the field. And I just feel like it's clearing up some of these reads for Locke, especially here. Now, it's a hold or illegal contact down the field on Adams, guarding Arroyo. Adams is 38, I believe. He's a safety, nickel DB type guy. Tennessee is in their nickel structure here against 12 personnel because it's 2nd and 7. So they're matching their personnel based on down and distance and what Seattle is presenting from a personnel standpoint. Why do I bring that up? Because it leads up to this touchdown to Arroyo here to culminate this drive. Like I said, it's a loss of 5 there for, I think it's Velus Jones, but the penalty on Adams pushed the ball forward and gave them a first down. So we're into 2 plays later. It's a 2nd and 5 after a short completion. We're on the same drive, by the way, the first one. Arroyo is set up into the boundary. Again, that blue line illustrates what hash the ball is on. And in this case, the short side of the field is over here. The wide side, is to our left. This is a quick pitch concept. It's not pin pull pitch. There's no one pinning down. It's not like this tight end is pinning down on the edge defender and Arroyo is looping to the outside as well as the play side tackle. They're just basically zoning all this. And 89 is stepping out to the boundary corner. I wonder if 89 should rather go to this safety. By the way, that is the safety that makes first contact. Jones dodges him or jukes him. Arroyo's got good positioning here on this little combo block with the right tackle. The right tackle is going to try to move up to the inside linebacker. Arroyo wants to try to keep his head on the outside. He's unable to do so. And after Jones breaks the tackle of the safety, it is Arroyo's man who gets over there to make the tackle, or at least touch the running back up as he gets out of bounds. It's not a big deal necessarily. Arroyo's not a horrible blocker, in my opinion. I would like to see a little bit more choppy steps here in the beginning. Cleats really high off the ground right now, in my opinion. A little bit more shorter, choppier steps, to me, would allow him to keep his hips and his head to the outside of this edge defender. It's a nickel personnel group, so you are not going to have a force defender outside of that edge defender. That's why this play is being ran. What I'm talking about is you have a boundary side safety, a boundary side inside linebacker, boundary side D-end, edge, whatever you want to call him. 89, I feel like it'd be great if 89 just worked up to the safety level and they forced the corner to make this tackle. But sometimes people switch it up and they block the corner. In any case, I think Arroyo can and should attempt to do better there. Nonetheless, it does go down as a gain of 4 yards. The ensuing snap, this is a 3rd and 1, the only third down, in fact, that Seattle and Drew Lock faced on that first possession. Extremely well-designed and intricate play, in my opinion, but at the same time, somewhat simple. Keep in mind, this is a safety. I'm calling this a nickel 5-1 from a Tennessee standpoint, meaning you've got one inside linebacker, that's the 1 in a 5-1, and then you have 5 guys on the line of scrimmage. We're talking about these 3 interior D linemen, this player who's moved up, the inside linebacker moved up as an edge defender, and then an actual defender up here to the top. Hence the reason why I call it 5-1. Hopefully that makes sense. But they're motioning Arroyo across from an 11 personnel group. And Barton, the inside linebacker, the only remaining inside linebacker, is going to get picked or screened, and he's got to go underneath of these 2 routes emanating from the top side of the field. And that just clears up all that space for Arroyo to run onto. Another great call, in my opinion. Very well coordinated and designed to get Arroyo out in space. Yes, he's against a linebacker, but that linebacker had no chance because of the scheme. In addition, because the play is on a 3rd and 1, I really like the way they use a reverse pivot with Locke and the running back stepping to the same side as the pivot. So what I'm talking about is Drew Lock's chest ends up facing us right now on the screen, but the ball is going up here. That's a reverse pivot. His back initially faces the direction of the intention of the play. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. A little ball fake, and then the cut, right? The cut on the defensive end / edge defender. But Barton has to go underneath of these picks. 1, 2, again, very Ben Johnson, Andy Reid-esque in my opinion, because in using 2 picks there, yes, those guys are running routes. It's kind of like a mesh climb concept almost for Seattle. We're talking about this drag here And the outside receiver is the guy who's running a little bit of a climb route in between a climb and a high side drag. But in any case, really well designed play, puts the inside linebacker in tremendous conflict. You can see that Drew Lock has all the time to throw the football, even though that edge defender does a great job of staying on his feet, number 11, and trying to front him up. Arroyo ends up getting, I think it's 14 yards. Really well designed play. I will give you the end zone angle of this one. I enjoyed it. Again, it reminds me of Kubiak with being very intentional in the way that he attacks, number one, and there's real understanding, in my opinion, of the look that you're going to get. I'm not saying that this wouldn't work if 33, who is an inside linebacker, let's say 33's feet were like right here. Then that would put 50 maybe right with his feet, maybe right here. It would still work, right? You would still get the two routes that are going to pick screen 50, which is Barton. You can see 37 is a safety that I spot shadowed or magnified here. So he would originally guard Arroyo man. Since Arroyo goes in motion, they reverse it or they flip it. So now 50's got to take him. He's got to go underneath of this first pick screen. Then there's a second one as well. So it just ensures that against man, Arroyo is going to be able to run onto all of that space out into the flats. Ton of room there, right? That separation, I'm not saying Arroyo couldn't have created it himself organically, but he didn't have to here. His offensive coordinator, his offensive staff, made sure that he would be able to get onto that space. So what you've done is, in my opinion, let's say that these two receivers here ran verticals, right? And the inside linebacker 50 was able to run a little bit more flat. He wouldn't have to run through these guys. What would be the percent conversion for Arroyo? It'd still be pretty high, probably 70, 75%. Let's just pretend for a moment that that's accurate. You might think higher. But by running the two screens and originally lining up Arroyo to the boundary to get him in motion, I think they've added 20%, maybe somewhere in that range, to the completion percent here against man. And again, this reminds me of Kubiak, who I thought was fantastic at calling plays to beat a certain coverage and then getting in the right personnel group / formation to elicit that coverage from the defensive coordinator and then exploit it. All right, let's go back to the culminating play of that drive. Of course, the touchdown to Arroyo, 36 yards. Again, 21 personnel group. And so they've elicited a 4-3 structure or response from Tennessee. I'm talking about this box here, or shaded area. Yes, there's only 6 players in that larger box, but the 7th guy is here. That's an inside linebacker. His alignment is what we would call apex. In fact, he's a little bit wider than apex. So what I mean by apex is wherever the right tackle is, his outside foot, wherever the receiver is, his inside foot, we should be able to create a triangle, and the center of your body should be at the top of that circle. So you can see, top of that triangle. So you can see his feet are pushed over in this direction a little further than an apex position that I talked about. But if you've never heard of that phrase or that term, that's why I'm explaining it to you. So what's happened here is Tennessee has chosen, it looks like the safety is trying to fly down. We're talking about that red line there. The safety is trying to fly down to match Russell's route into the flats. Certainly the boundary corner, he could respond along this blue line with Arroyo's route. You would still throw the football. You would still have an opportunity to throw a football. It would really essentially end up being a cover 3. There's still going to be a ton of space, right? And you can see that it's illustrated there. I'm talking about this safety here. Perhaps there would be less space at the time that Arroyo catches the football, but we'll pause it. At the time that he does, a little less than 8-9 yards. Let's cut it in half, per se. I still think that this is a really well-designed play. The other way to do it, of course, would be the corner to take Russell's route, and then the safety to deal with Arroyo on this seam vertical. You may not throw the football there. That's what I'm saying. Drew Lock may decide not to, although Lock did make a really poor decision on the third possession, the interception that was called back for illegal contact down the field. I love this play call. Again, you have elicited a 4-3 structure from the Titans. 4-3 personnel, Structurally, they're somewhat locked in back here. And what I mean is they could rotate to a cover 3. And let me switch colors here for a second. This corner could get depth. And so you would be talking about a cover 3 with that corner, that safety, and then this corner, again, matching Arroyo's route. So those 3 guys would end up being the 3 deep in a cover 3 scheme. That's not necessarily what Tennessee does. It's certainly a blown coverage. In my opinion, this is well coordinated from a Seattle standpoint. I'm sure that, Tennessee fans or other analysts would say, oh, that's just a blown coverage is all that is. In my opinion, all of this, the 21 personnel, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, the formation, 2 receivers to the field, especially after the fullback motions across, that really set this up, in my opinion, and caused Tennessee, or stretched Tennessee's defense horizontally into the boundary, by the way, and then caused the vertical seam to be wide open. Obviously, those 2 guys up to the top, the corner and the safety, could play it better than they did right here. Great play, a lot of fun to break down, and fun to see Arroyo, right, getting involved, making plays. Only faced one third down on the first possession, up 16-3 at the end of the first quarter. The only problem is obviously that, Myers has now missed, I think, a second kick during the preseason, and this one ended up being an extra point. So we'll move to the second possession here. I think I've got 2, maybe 3 more plays to break down and talk about from an Arroyo standpoint. And then we'll get to Jakardier Wright's touchdown run, 69-yarder to make it 13-3, excuse me, could have been 14-3. I think I'd like to see Arroyo used more here on stuff like this. Again, you see the running back motion out, and it just really helps, it can help, clear things up. When you've got a too high safety structure, it puts stress and or strain on those second-level defenders. In this case, because it's a 2nd and 12, it's a nickel response by Tennessee. Saubert and the receiver up to the top, slot receiver up to the top, are going to chip and then release. I like the design here. In my opinion, what's happening, the 2 receivers illustrated by the yellow lines, they're just running clear-out concepts. So down here to the bottom, that corner and that safety are going to occupy that bottom side yellow vertical. This corner and this safety are going to occupy that top side vertical, illustrated again, both by yellow lines. And so because Saubert chips and then releases to the flat, Locke has some options. He could throw it to the running back underneath with some separation between him and the running back. We're talking about Barton here. Or he could throw it to Saubert. I would like to see Arroyo get these targets, to be honest with you. I like Saubert, right? You'll never forget, obviously, the game-winning 2-point conversion in late season of 2025. It was a great play, really well designed, in my opinion. I don't think it was accidental that he was there on the field. To me, I'd like to see Arroyo get an opportunity to break some tackles. And not blaming Locke and not really trying to be too harsh, but he does the same thing on the very next snap. But this is what I mean. I feel like you know what you're going to get from Saubert. Reliable player, blocks well, a good balanced tight end. This is a guy with potential long-term that you want to find out how many plays he can make. Maybe Seattle, maybe they've already answered that question for themselves in camp. This is the very next snap, 3rd and 9, and he does the same thing I'm advocating for on the previous one, which is, why I made a big deal of it. So I'm interested in the reasons why Seattle is pass pro in the way they are here. Arroyo is chipping the D end, and then the left tackle is setting on him. Fortunately for Seattle, Jeffrey Simmons is looping all the way around. So this looks like a pass pro that's just called. And then, when I say it's just called, it's a part of the play call, and then there's no adjustment being made to Jeffrey Simmons where he's lined up. Now, it doesn't matter. And actually, it does matter. It ends up working out in Seattle's favor because Drew Lock does a really nice job of breaking off of his reads here, scrambling for the first down. He's got a little bit of style, obviously, by the way. Pointing here is a 3rd and 9. I don't want to complain too much about Arroyo. I guess what I'm saying is, selfishly, I'd like to see what the guy's capable of as much as possible. He did play 19 snaps. Some of the other tight ends, played 14 or 15. Just want to find out how good the guy is and how much they can get out of him, moving forward, in particular in the regular season. Perhaps I misspoke a moment ago. That should have been referred to as the second possession for Seattle. This will be the last play that I talk about. It's the touchdown run by Jakardier Wright. And again, it's a 1st and 10, mind you, 12 personnel grouping. And this is very interesting to me. Tennessee has responded with a base nickel defense. And the nickel's set into the boundary. He's to the short side of the field. So I'm a little unsure about why that is. It's a 2-by-2 formation. I'm only going to break this down from the end zone angle. You got a receiver and a tight end in the slot, Saubert. Off screen to our left is another receiver, and then there's Arroyo. So 2-by-2 formation. Hopefully all those lines aren't too obtrusive or difficult to understand. Maybe I'll try to see if the One Sports program will allow me to time them up. So perhaps I could show like the yellow lines and the orange ones, the yellow and orange lines, excuse me, and then the purple and red one later. It's an F counter concept. So F counter means that you're getting a guard pull and kick. In this case, it's the right guard 64, and then a tight end, H-back, fullback type player. I'm referring to Saubert, pulling and then leading up to the second level. Now that purple line is not exactly the path that he takes, but for purposes of the illustration, that's where it's supposed to go. Jakardier Wright is supposed to take it off this wall of down blocks that occurs here. Again, it's the yellow lines that show up here in a moment. So I think I have the answer to my question. I just need to draw them separately. But in any case, I know some people do not enjoy all the drawing on the screen, and I feel bad for that because it's really what I have to do. It's a two-gap bubble for Tennessee. From an alignment standpoint, that's a no-no, first of all. Second of all three of those guys that are triangulated end up being blocked for Tennessee. Arroyo gets one of them intentionally here, and then he gets a second one accidentally because he turns to look back at the player that he was blocking, and then the wide receiver from the boundary essentially blocks Arroyo into that free safety. So we'll let this flow a couple of times so you guys can see what I'm talking about with Arroyo. Maybe we'll slow it down some. He goes to the Mike linebacker, misses underneath. Well, he doesn't miss underneath, but the linebacker is able to swipe over the top, I guess is a better way to phrase it. He gets enough of a piece of him that Jakardier Wright is able to bring this downhill. It's a really great job by, I think it's 77, the offensive lineman lined up here at left guard. We're talking about his block right here on this, nose, defensive tackle, whatever. It looks like a 2-eye. He does get some help from the left tackle. Take him down. There's additional space created here because of that help from the left tackle. I think that's Josh Jones, former Raven. Really nice job, if you ask me, from a blocking standpoint. Jakardier Wright, you knew he was gone. At that point, it's Wright puts him up 13-3. From an Arroyo standpoint, I'm not sure how this one's been broken down by other people. He probably gets credit for both blocks. I think we could be a little bit less tilted over here and trust our strength. And then there, he's turning around looking for the guy. It's a no-no as well, especially on a concept like F counter. You're never going to be able to turn around and pick back up the guy who you just were supposed to block and or perhaps missed. But works out for Seattle. Really dominant first quarter. Cam Ward, I understand all the discussion about him not playing well throughout the entirety of the game. They were able to come back and win. It's tough for me to be too hard on some of these quarterbacks during the preseason, especially ones that are facing the Seahawks defense. Remembering the way that Cam Ward played in the fourth quarter last season, the road win for Seattle, really caused problems for their starting defense. But I haven't broken down Seattle's defense from this game at all. I wanted to look at Jalen Milroe, Drew Lock, and Elijah Arroyo. It was one of my favorite players from that draft 2 years ago. In this case, I think that his usage was appropriate, don't get me wrong, but I'd like to see him used more as a blocker at the point of attack so that situations like the previous play that I just showed you could be A, exposed, and B, used as a reference point for how to improve on certain things. He's a fantastic talent and a great piece of depth among, in my opinion, a very underrated tight end group. Probably not underrated by you guys, Seahawks fans. Of course, no one else will be listening at this point. A.J. Barner on another team in the NFL, I think is probably a 65, 70 catch guy with 6 or 8 touchdowns, if not more. I think his talent is, from a statistical standpoint, there is not a lateral connection between his talent and the statistical production. Essentially, I think he could get more opportunities in another offense or another city. Arroyo, in my opinion, could impact that as well. The usage of him this year will be very interesting for me. The design of his touchdown to culminate the first possession. I think is obvious that it's trying to take advantage of his ability to stretch the field, get downfield. Tennessee happens to, quote, blow the coverage, but there's still at least two coverage options from a tight end standpoint where Drew Lock would still end up throwing the football and giving Arroyo a chance to make the play. I thought he's flashed somewhat as a rookie, and here we are in year two. He has a great impact in a small sample size, admittedly, against Tennessee. In the first quarter, Tennessee came out flat, clearly. If you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comments section. Number one, I may have something out on Drew Lock and Jalen Milroe into Wednesday, somewhere in that time frame. Just extremely busy here as the school year starts. But I appreciate you guys checking this video out, sticking around this long, first of all. And then second of all, if you think other Seahawks fans would like to hear what I have to say about Elijah Arroyo, as well as the plays that I use to illustrate and make my points, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media so that this content can get more reach. Appreciate you guys' time.